Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're tackling a huge idea, something that's at the very heart of any democracy. We're talking about the promise of equality and the constant, ongoing struggle to make that promise real for everyone.
So let's just start with this question, because it's something that affects every single one of us. What does dignity actually mean to you? At its core, how do we make sure that everyone is treated as if they're worthy of respect? That's really the big question we're going to unpack today.
All right, let's get into it. For a democracy like India, this whole journey toward equality kicks off with a really powerful promise. And it's not just some nice idea, it's written right into the very foundation of the country, into the Constitution itself. It's a real solid commitment.
And this idea, well, it's the bedrock of everything. The Constitution says, flat out, that every single person is equal. It doesn't matter what your religion is, your race, your caste, your gender, none of that. You are recognized as equal. And think about that for a second. That's a pretty radical and absolutely essential place to start.
Okay, so how does it actually do that? Well, the Constitution doesn't just leave it at a vague statement. No way. It gets super specific. First, it says everyone is equal before the law. That means everybody, from the president all the way down to a domestic worker. Then it says you can't discriminate based on things like religion, race, or sex. Everyone also gets access to all public places, shops, hotels, parks, you name it. And crucially, it completely abolishes the practice of untouchability. These are the actual legal tools you need to even begin building a more equal society.
But here's the thing, right? We all know that what's written on paper and what happens in real life, well, they can be two totally different things. Just because a law exists doesn't mean it magically changes how people think or what they do every day.
And I mean, just listen to how powerful and direct the language is. This is straight from Article 15 of the Constitution. It says the state shall not discriminate. It's not a suggestion, it's a command. It prohibits it. This right here is the legal backbone of that whole promise of equality we were talking about.
And this is where it gets really interesting, because this captures the human side of the whole struggle. This is where that legal promise in Article 15 clashes with reality on the street. This is a famous scene from the film Duar. You've got this shoeshine boy, and someone just throws a coin at him, but he refuses to pick it up. Why? Because his work has value, and he demands to be treated with respect. See, it's not about the money at all. It's about his dignity.
And that's the key, right there. This whole fight isn't just about following rules or laws. It's about dignity. It's that basic human feeling of being worthy of respect. And when someone is treated unequally, their dignity is violated. That's a kind of harm that honestly goes way deeper than just breaking some rule in a book. So here's the central struggle we're talking about. Laws can change overnight, but attitudes, man, those change slowly. They're often rooted in centuries of social habits and history. So even when people know that discrimination is against the law, those deep-seated prejudices can stick around. And that creates this massive gap between what the Constitution promises and what people actually experience every single day. Okay, so what do we do about that gap? How do you actually fix it? Well, let's take a look at how both people and governments are actively trying to close it. Because, the struggle doesn't just stop when a law is passed. In a lot of ways, that's where it really begins. So, on one hand, you have the government trying to create change from the top down. And a fantastic example of this is the midday meal scheme in schools. Think about it. By giving kids a free lunch, not only did it get more poor children to actually come to school, but it also did something else pretty amazing. It started to break down social barriers. You had kids from all different castes sitting together, eating the same meal. That's a powerful way to teach equality from a very young age. But let's be real. Government programs can't do it all. They're just not enough on their own. The real lasting change, the real power, often comes from the ground up. It comes from individuals, from communities who stand up and demand respect, who challenge unfairness when they see it in their own lives. And this quote from B.R. Ambedkar, who was one of the main architects of the Indian Constitution, just nails the whole idea. He said, "It is disgraceful to live at the cost of one's self-respect. Self-respect is the most vital factor in life." I mean, he's basically saying that your self-worth isn't something someone gives you. It's something you build yourself through the struggle to make your life better. It's the most important thing.
And this whole fight for equality and dignity, it's not just happening in one place. Not at all. It's a fundamental part of democracies all over the world. So many countries are wrestling with their own histories of inequality.
So let's switch gears and look at another example to see how this plays out elsewhere. Let's go to the United States, to a really pivotal moment in its history.
And just like we've been talking about, it didn't start with some big new law. It started with one person and one single, incredibly courageous act of defiance.
That person was Rosa Parks. On December 1st, 1955, she refused to give up her bus seat to a white man. And that one act, it was the spark. As you can see here, it lit a fire that became the civil rights movement. It was a massive, decade-long struggle that eventually led to a huge piece of legislation, the Civil Rights Act of 1964, which finally outlawed that kind of discrimination.
And that's what we now call the civil rights movement. But it was so much more than just a protest. It was this huge mobilization of all kinds of people, from every walk of life, all coming together to demand one thing: that America actually live up to its own promises of democracy and equality. And yet, does this sound familiar? Just like in India, passing that law was a massive, crucial step. But it wasn't the end of the story, not by a long shot. The deep-seated economic and social inequalities, the echoes of centuries of disadvantage, they're still there. It just goes to show that the fight for true equality is a long, long road, even after you win the big legal battles. So all of this really brings us to a much deeper understanding of what democracy actually is. It's not some perfect system that's all finished and set in stone. The truth is, no country is ever completely democratic. It's not a destination you just arrive at one day. It's more like a journey, a process of constantly trying to get better. And there are always people, always communities, pushing to expand what democracy means and make it work for more people.
And at the very heart of that journey is this constant struggle, the struggle to make sure all people are seen as equal and that their dignity is respected. That's what it's all about. Every generation, every movement is basically trying to take that original promise of democracy and make it more real for more people.
So if there's one thing to take away from all this, it's that the fight for equality is never really over. It's a living, breathing process that's absolutely central to the whole idea of democracy. Which leads us with one final question to think about in our own lives right now. Where do you see this vital struggle for dignity and equality playing out today?